Greetings, YouTubians, and welcome back to Wayne's Sharp World, where today we're going to be taking a look at one of my most highly anticipated button lock knives of the year, and this one here is none other than the Civivi Conspirator. Now, before I go any further into this review, I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in today. If you like what you see, please do me a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button, follow along, and I will continue to bring you the content. I also want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by White Mountain Knives. Look them up for all of your knife and EDC needs and use this code right here, WSW10, for 10% off your order from White Mountain Knives. Now, with that being said, let's take a look at some overall specs on this guy right here. We have an overall length of 8.11 inches with a blade length coming in at 3.5 inches and a blade width coming in at 1.17 inches with a blade thickness at 120 thousandths, a blade material of Nitro V steel, which is a pretty darn good steel to throw on a knife under $100. And this one is coming well at under $100. We'll touch on that price here in just a second. But we got a drop point style blade, a flat grind with a handle length coming in at 4.63 inches, handle thickness at 527 thousandths, handle width at 930 thousandths, handle material of black micarta. You also have some additional options of some type of wood scales, some green micarta, and I believe they have something else, but I don't quite remember what it is. I'm assuming probably some type of carbon fiber would be my guess. But we have a button lock for the locking mechanism, of course. That's what's making this knife so freaking exciting for everyone to check out. We have a user of a right or left hand tip-up carry, a weight of 3.82 ounces, and a price coming in at $79.90. So well under that $100 mark. And that's nice to see, you know, prices of a lot of things are going up, including knives. And I think even if there wasn't inflation going on, I think this guy would still be somewhere in that, you know, $70 range, somewhere right around in there, $70 to $80. So no issues with the price at all. And let's take a look at some size comparisons here. And we're just going to stick with a couple knives that I think everyone's very well aware of. We're going to compare them with the other Civivi button lock knives. We have the Civivi Cogent right here. I'm considering this a model that I'm going to compare with this year's models. It came out very late last year. I didn't even have a chance to get this in my Knife of the Year awards or anything, so it's in contention for all that this year. I still really do like this Cogent, and we have the Civivi Altus here. And as you guys can see, this is very much the biggest of the group, very easily. So you kind of have your trifecta here from Civivi in terms of size. It goes from kind of a small to a medium to a bit of a larger model. I don't know if I would call this a big knife, but it's the biggest of the button locks from Civivi so far this year. And it's a nice little range to select from. And let me tell you, 3 really good blades here. There really is a lot to like about every one of these blades. But we're just going to talk about this blade today. May bring the Cogent back later in the review for a little comparison. But overall, Civivi has done a lot of good things here, but there are some things that I think could use a little improving. But let's start with the blade, where there really isn't a lot that needs to be done, because this is a nice wide blade with a very slicey edge coming in at 17 thousandths, and it's going to be even extra slicey because it's such a tall blade. It goes from 17 thousandths to 120 thousandths. So, you know, it takes a little longer to get up to that 120 thousandths. So, you know, relatively thin blade all the way up, and it's going to be a nice little slicer for you. This is the kind of jimping I'm looking for on knives. This is really good. It's not the first time you've seen it on Civivi. You know, it's rather common, Civivi jimping, but it's just so good. It's like the perfect space, the perfect amount of grip for me. I wouldn't change anything about this jimping. Really like this, and I really like the jimping they put on this flipper tab here. They went all the way around, so you don't have to go all the way on the top. I see it from Kaiser sometimes. Kaiser's a little notorious for it lately, is they kind of skip putting the jimping like right on the corner of the flipper tab here. They may have some on the side and the top, but sometimes they don't have them right in the corner. I really like that extra jimping in the corner there. Makes a huge difference for me, just in terms of what I prefer when I'm looking to deploy a flipping knife. So I really do like that, and I'm really glad that Civivi seems to be doing that a lot more and pretty much on a regular basis now. Outside of that, you have a fuller that is phenomenal. We'll talk more about that when we get to action, because it's really just, adds no performance to the blade, but adds a whole new element to terms of fidget factor and deployment on this knife. Going into the handle and ergos, overall they're pretty good. This has kind of that, I don't want to say shaman-y feel, but you guys have seen those the skinny shaman handles that I can't remember the name of the company that makes them. They're it's like a third-party aftermarket manufacturer, but it kind of reminds me of that, the skinny shaman handles, because they're so straight and so neutral, but they get just a little wider up here. And a lot of things about these ergos are good, but the one thing that knocks it down for me, I'm gonna keep hitting it, because it's this clip, this garbage clip that Civivi puts on these knives, on their budget knives, and it's just not that good. It's I think it's a little longer than I would like, and more than anything, this ramp needs to come down. The ramp is up too high. It's not so much this that affects the ergos. This, in all honesty, this is fine in terms of ergos. I don't think it looks the best, but it's, in terms of ergos, it actually feels good. But the height of the ramp up here, it just sticks up too high, and you feel it too much in your palm. It's right around kind of my callus area, but it's not on a callus. It pushes right in on kind of the softer, uncalloused area, and it just doesn't feel that good. Not a hot spot, but again, I just feel it more than I want to, and it sucks because the rest of this handle feels very good. The rest of the ergos are pretty good on this knife. It fills the hand. The choil works really well. Gives you a good place to put your index finger. You want to be careful, because if you choke up too hard, you could maybe catch the bottom of that blade. So of course, always use your tools with caution. But I really like the overall ergos. It's such a bummer that the ramp sits up too high, and I feel that more than I want. And just the fact that this clip in general is on here. Really wish there was a different clip. But it is what it is. In terms of the micarta, it's not the best. It's mediocre micarta at best. I think Civivi could do a better job. I've seen worse. I have definitely seen worse. So I'm not going to say it's bad micarta, but it's not good micarta. It does offer a good level of grip, though. So at the end of the day, what you want more than anything out of micarta is the grip that it offers, and it does offer some decent grip. Still not the best grip, but again, it's a tightrope. You're talking an $80, $79, $80 knife. When you use my code, it's actually only going to be like, less than that, like, $72, $71.50 or something like that. But regardless, it's still something to where they could probably use nicer micarta. I've seen Civivi use nicer micarta, so little disappointing. But again, is what it is. But in terms of the just feel in hand, it's pretty good. They did do a good job of kind of chamfering. It's not contoured, but very good job of chamfering the edges of this micarta. So it does feel pretty smooth. There's no points on the handle that are coming out and are being annoying. So that's pretty good. Now going into the action, I'm a little torn on this action, because it is good. It's definitely not bad. I can't say it's excellent or, like some of the best action I've felt on a button lock this year. But it's good. It's very solid and plenty good enough. What is excellent, though, is the fidget factor on this knife. And it all comes down to this fuller here, because it is so easy to just dig your middle finger. And dig is the wrong word, because dig requires a little more effort. Just place your middle finger back there. The fuller catches it. The fuller has really nice grip. They didn't do any chamfering on the inside of this fuller, so it's nice and bitey. It's going to grab your nail or grab the meat of your finger, whatever you want to use. This is a knife to where if you have any fingernail whatsoever, I usually don't have a lot of fingernail, but even this little amount that I do have, I can easily flick it out, and it's effortless. It really is effortless. So in terms of action, this is what I'm trying to get at, because I'm ranting and raving about how good the fidget factor is, and it does have a very high fidget factor because I love middle finger flicking, and this fuller is fantastic. What kind of brings the action down a little on this guy is the detent. But you got to keep in mind, too, the detent on a button lock is extremely different than the detent on any type of frame lock or liner lock knife, because the detent's completely different. There is no little ball. It's all right back here, and it has to do with, how deep the milling area is and how much, it's hard to even really explain, but how much pressure it takes to break the lock of the milled out area that the button goes down into to push it out. So a lot of that is just the ever so slightest amount of, of ramp that it has to cover. So it's not the strongest detent, but at the same time, you don't want a strong detent on this knife because you want to be able, to middle finger flick it. And since this isn't a hole, since it's just a fuller, you can't have too strong of a detent or it's going to be too difficult to kick that blade out. What they did do, and so in terms of, the type of detent for this knife, right? We talk about that a lot. Sometimes the detent is too soft for a certain knife. Sometimes it's just right for a specific knife. I think for this specific knife, they did a good job of making the detent strong to where you could shake the blade out, but I'm shaking pretty hard here, and you can kind of hear it start to come out a little, but it's not falling out. So it's a strong enough detent to secure the blade, and it's a light enough detent to be able to just push out and kick that blade out with your middle finger. And it's also strong enough to where you still get pretty good action on the flipper. Not great, but it's very solid action for the flipper. So overall, you kind of have a synergy that the detent has to, balance with between the middle finger flicking and the regular flipping. So at the end of the day, it is a reasonably good action. It's just not the best action of any button lock that I've come across so far. But it is still good. At the end of the day, it is one that I'm happy with. I will say I had very high hopes for this knife. I don't think it quite met my hopes, but I may have had unreasonably high hopes for it as well, because I am still pleased with it. I will say that. I am pleased with it. I'm satisfied with it. It's just not as good as I thought it was going to be. But it's still going to stick around because I do enjoy it, and it does have a very high fidget factor. And it's one that I do. Like I said, I just enjoy it enough to keep it around. There's something about a knife under $100 that has the materials a knife like this has, that still has that great Civivi fit and finish, even though there's some things about the knife I don't particularly love. Overall, Civivi I would say 95% of the time, Civivi comes through in terms of fit and finish, price, quality, action, edge sharpness, a lot of good qualities in the Civivi, and this does live up to those. So at the end of the day, it's a great offering. It's one I would recommend, and if you're looking for a bigger button knife lock, it's definitely one I'd recommend because nice high fidget factor, love the middle finger flicking option. You can also just roll this guy out with the fuller if you're into that. So worth mentioning. At the end of the day, a very nice offering from Civivi. The Civivi Conspirator. Let me know what you guys think. I hope you enjoyed this one. Hope you have a great rest of your day. And until the next one, I'm out.